Let's cross down to Melbourne and catch up with media writer for The Australian, Sophie Elsworth. Always takes us through the fascinating stories in the media every Monday. Good to talk to you, Sophie. Oh, boy. The ABC are in all manner of pain over Stan Grant, aren't they? He's going to disappear and have a break. He says he's been the subject of racism. He says the ABC hasn't supported him. I think he's got a good case there, but they're trying to support him now a couple of weeks in.
Well, that's right, Chris. I mean, we saw hundreds of ABC staff walk off the job today, standing in solidarity with Stan Grant over these claims that he's penned that he's suffered extensive racism, and he said that the broadcaster has not been supportive of him since he was part of that coronation coverage 2 weeks ago, Chris. But when this coronation coverage did air on the ABC, ABC management did not come out and support Stan. David Anderson, Justin Stevens, the news director, they were nowhere to be seen. And it's only in the last few days when Stan penned this letter on the ABC website and announced he's stepping down that they've finally spoken out about this. Yeah,
that's where I think Stan Grant's got a really, really strong point. He was the focal point, if you like, the fulcrum for all this complaint. All these complaints about their coronation coverage, which we'll get to later, but instead there was no one defending him. He was left to being the only one sort of defending himself, and that's where the leadership of the organisation should have explained what they decided and why they did it, not leave it all on Stan Grant. But I tell you what, I have to laugh at the ABC now because him, the ABC management and the other staff who just left Stan to deal with this for the last 2 weeks, well, now they come out and support him. And how do they do it? Well, they walk off the job and get onto these sort of stupid Twitter hashtag things. Have a look at this.
I stand with Stan. I stand with Stan. We reject racism. We reject racism. We reject racism. We reject racism. We reject racism.
Yeah, like we all reject racism, but the idea was to stand up for Stan when he was being slammed back over the last 2 weeks and share the responsibility of the ABC's broadcast, not leave it all on his shoulders.
Well, that's right, Chris. And look, the criticism of the coronation coverage was of the coronation coverage, the ABC editorial direction that allowed this 1 hour coronation coverage that was a pile-on on the coronation, a pile-on on the British monarchy, and resulted in more than 1,000 complaints to the public broadcaster. It's resulted in an investigation by the ABC ombudsman as to whether they've breached editorial standards. Virginia Trioli's program on the Monday morning, 2 days after that coverage aired, was absolutely inundated with furious viewers of ABC. Their social media accounts were littered with complaints. ABC news boss Justin Stevens has been critical this afternoon of News Corp. Well, perhaps he needs to look at the situation within the ABC because they have a lot to answer here of who made these decisions to air this broadcast, which has brought them immense pain ever since.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've seen some of the social media attacks against Stan Grant, and there are racist elements. I've seen some shocking racist attacks on him, and that is inexcusable. That's the toxic sewer you get on social media, and Stan Grant should never have to stand up to that stuff. It's disgusting. But the broader issue of this coverage, of course, the ABC and Stan Grant and the others, I think Craig Foster was involved, Julia Bed, they all had to accept the responsibility for that broadcast, and the ABC should have been explaining themselves, not leaving it just on one presenter's shoulders. Here's an example of what went to air that Saturday afternoon.
Australia with an Indigenous heritage, a British foundation and the migrant richness of the migrant experience is a lovely idea. I don't know where that Australia is. We haven't lived in that Australia.
Yeah, so disagree with Stan Grant's interpretation of history there, disagree with his point of view, do it strongly, attack the ABC for the insensitive nature of that broadcast on the day of the coronation, fine. But none of that amounts to racist abuse, and that should never be tolerated. And what is ugly, Sophie, is some people at the ABC and elsewhere in politics trying to say that because people here on Sky criticise that coverage, that they've been involved in a racist pile-on against Stan Grant. Well, that is rubbish. He has many friends here. He used to work here. I count him as a friend, and none of us would defend or support any racist taunt against Stan Grant.
Chris, it goes without saying, of course not. Some of the comments on Twitter are absolutely disgusting. No one is saying that they're acceptable, but the ABC does not like the coverage that has been in News Corp and on Sky News, resulting on that coronation night, the fallout from it. They don't like the coverage. The facts of the matter are there are 2 investigations now. They've been flooded with complaints. They've got staff walking off the job. This is an absolute train wreck. Now, Chris, David Anderson will front Senate estimates on Wednesday. He has an awful lot of questions to answer. He has not spoken publicly, apart from putting out a statement to all staff about this matter. There is a lot of questions to be answered, and I think the ABC management is in damage control over this. This is an awful mess, and Stan is on his last program tonight on Q&A till he takes indefinite leave.
Yeah, sad situation, but those estimates hearings, that'll be worth watching. Thanks for joining us, Sophie. I appreciate your insights.